You're listening to the Chronicles of Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello and welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by 90 Min. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and the dust has settled a little bit after a really, I want to say a disappointing draw because of the nature of the performance. Actually, now that I'm a little bit calmer, now that I've cooled down, when you look at it, getting a draw at Leeds when you had to play the majority of the second period with 10 men doesn't feel like the worst result in the world. And that's because it isn't the worst result in the world. I think, you know, you've got to be fair. You've got to assess sort of the overall performance and what we actually deserved to get from the game. And the answer to that question, what did Arsenal actually deserve to get from the game, is very little. We didn't perform. We didn't create enough goal scoring opportunities. Some people will argue that there was still enough for us to have had an impact on the game, for us to have scored a goal at Ellen Road. But ultimately, when you look at the frequency with which Leeds created opportunities and you compare that to Arsenal's, you know, then it's you've got to say that we were somewhat fortunate actually to get out of there with a point. Now, at Arsenal, we've got a completely different problem to the problem that Leeds United have. Leeds United, well, they create bags and bags of goal-scoring chances, but they don't take them. They're not efficient enough in front of goal. You could argue that Arsenal are not efficient enough in front of goal either, but we just don't create the chances. And so our problem starts a lot deeper in the side. It runs a lot deeper, and it's a more concerning issue, in my opinion. And you know, as I said, when we did the post-match reaction show yesterday, I was frustrated, I was angry, I was disappointed, obviously, really disappointed in particular with the actions of Nicolas Pepe and what that meant for the outcome of the game. That red card, how unnecessary it was and how it put us in a position where our game plan had to go from trying to win the game to let's sit back, let's be tight defensively, let's try and hold Leeds off, and if we can nick something on the break, it'll be a bonus. So yeah, you know, I was really angry last night. I was frustrated by Nicolas Pepe in particular. I touched on the point that we all wanted Mikel Arteta to make the changes that he made. We wanted to see the system shift. We wanted to see Aubameyang back through the middle, but ultimately none of it worked. And my worry is now, where do Arsenal go from here? How do Arsenal move forward? What's the next port of call for Mikel Arteta? What does he do to try and solve this issue? And that issue being that we're lacking desperately in any sort of creativity, whether that's coming from our midfield, the players that are deployed in the wide positions, whether our centre forwards are creating chances for themselves or not. It's just a massive issue for Mikel Arteta's side at the moment. And what is the next step? What now for Mikel Arteta? What does he do? What can he tweak? What can he try between now and the next game in the hope that Arsenal will get back to, you know, to being able to create chances, to being able to cause a threat to teams? That's the big question here. Now, of course, we brought you the post-match reaction podcast, which if you haven't seen or listened to already, check back on the various platforms and you'll be able to see it. And we're also going to be bringing you another show tonight, 9 p.m. UK time, live right here on a YouTube channel. Podcast will be available shortly afterwards, in which I'll be joined by Adrian Clark, and we'll be trying to get, well, we will be getting Adrian's thoughts on the performance, on the Pepe thing, on Mikel Arteta, all the things I've just talked about. Where does he go from here, etc., etc. So make sure you've got your notifications turned on. Come and join me for that one. I'm sure it will be excellent. Always is when Adrian comes onto the program. But I guess the reason I wanted to do this sort of extra sort of mini bonus podcast today was in regards to a subject that has been quite fiercely debated actually on social media. with regards to Granit Xhaka's actions at the final whistle. Now, we all saw what happened. Everybody saw it. Kieran Tierney obviously upset with the result, upset with the way things had gone. It's not 100% clear whether Kieran Tierney was upset with Gianni Alioski, whether he was going over to confront Alioski, or whether he was upset with Granit Xhaka because he felt that Xhaka was being, a little bit too friendly with somebody who had ultimately got our player sent off. That's the view of some people. I say got our player sent off, but I think that's largely inaccurate. Actually, Nicolas Pepe got himself sent off. Nobody else got Nicolas Pepe sent off. Nicolas Pepe doesn't react the way he does. There's nothing for Alioski to make a meal of, and therefore he's not sent off. Now, we've all seen players in football for years and years and years. Whenever that kind of thing happens, they hit the deck, holding their face, etc., etc. And in this day and age where there's VAR, there's hundreds of cameras, it just feels even more stupid that Nicolas Pepe kind of fell into this trap. I made my thoughts on Nicolas Pepe's actions very clear on the last show. I don't want to spend another 15 odd minutes or so having a go at Nicolas Pepe. My thoughts are clear. It was stupid. He let his team down. He let his manager down. He let himself down. But this whole incident involving Xhaka has, as I said, become quite the talking point on social media. Lots of people saying they're done with Granit Xhaka. They're fed up with him because he had his arm around an opponent who got our player sent off. Well, I'll make that point again. Alioski didn't get anybody sent off. Nicolas Pepe got himself sent off. It's as simple as that. The guy acted like a complete and utter fool, and there's no excuse for what Nicolas Pepe done. Players wind each other up all the time. All of us have played football at some level, and all of us know that happens. Granit Xhaka put his arm around Alioski at the end. So what? Who cares? Is it really a big deal? Yes, it's a long way from the Martin Keown, Patrick Vieira, Gilberto, Ray Parla, Lauren combination that went off the handle a little bit at Old Trafford after that controversial game whereby Patrick Vieira was sent off and Ruud van Nistelrooy missed the penalty. I loved that at the time. But this team have never given us any indication that they have that kind of steel, that they have that kind of desire, that kind of fight, that kind of passion. So why expect it now is kind of my point. Now, as I've said already, we don't know 100% that Kieran Tierney's grievance was with Granit Xhaka and not Alioski. Arsenal fans have taken issue with the fact that when Tierney come over, Xhaka kind of puts his arm around Alioski to hold him and then sort of ushers Kieran Tierney out of the way. Now, imagine how pissed off we'd have all been if Kieran Tierney went and got himself sent off after the final whistle. And as well as having to contend with all the injury suspensions that we currently have, we then had a situation where Kieran Tierney was unavailable. Nobody would be happy. And so I don't really take an issue with Granit Xhaka. In my view, I'm not going to say cooling the situation completely, because if it is him that Tierney's wound up with, then his actions and his exchange with Alioski has actually fueled the fire rather than putting it out. But I can't be 100% sure that Granit Xhaka, wasn't protecting Tierney a little bit and protecting Alioski a little bit, because at the end of the day, that exchange is unnecessary for both players. It doesn't need to happen. We talk so much about unsavoury incidents in football, bad behaviour, players not setting an example. And I haven't got a problem with Kieran Tierney's passion. I haven't got a problem with the fire in his belly, the fact that he was upset by the way the game went, maybe Alioski's part in the Pepe sending off. I haven't got an issue with that. But I also don't have an issue with a player, whether it be done in the right way or not, preventing the situation from escalating and Arsenal ultimately finding themselves in a place where they have another suspension to contend with. So, you know, for me, it's not that big of an issue. It doesn't really reflect on Granit Xhaka in any way, either way, for me, personally. I know a lot of you are disappointed with that. I know a lot of you are frustrated by that. But is it that big a deal? No. And not in the case of everybody, because some people have genuinely taken an issue with it and have genuine, valid concerns and reasons as to why. But others, they're using this as an example to wheel out the Granit Xhaka agenda and to jump on the bandwagon again. And you know, it just feels to me like a bit of an irrelevant incident. When you take into context the fact that Arsenal went down to 10 men, played poorly overall, but still managed to get a point from Ellen Road, somewhat fortuitously, I think that this is, as I said, an irrelevant incident. Something that I don't see why we need to be stuck on. But such has been the reaction to it on social media, I felt it was worth discussing. I felt it was worth sharing my view, and I'd love to hear you guys' views, of course, in the live comments, so get those in. But what is Granit Xhaka to do? Just move out of the way and let them go at it? Not convinced that that would have even happened, because as we've seen over the years with footballers, a lot of it is this, it's talk, not much action. But yeah, I don't feel that Granit Xhaka deserves the stick that he's getting for it. I've seen some really stupid replies on social media. Xhaka protecting his countrymen. They're not from the same country. North Macedonia and Albania are not the same country. You know, and it's those kind of comments like, you know, oh, he's just protecting his countrymen. He's protecting his countrymen over his teammate. That's what's wrong with the mentality at Arsenal. That's what fuels these kind of stupid agendas, ignorant comments like that. Because it's not the case. They're not from the same country. They're not from the same nation. They're not particularly good mates from what anybody knows or understands. Nobody knows whether Granit Xhaka had Kieran Tierney's interests at heart when he sort of put his arm around Alioski kind of to keep him next to him and ushered Kieran Tierney out the way. Nobody really knows, and that's the point. Nobody really knows. And therefore, you can't sit there and beat a player over the head based on an assumption which has been built on a couple of TV pictures that actually, as we know and we've seen many times in the history of football and in life, that a short clip can be interpreted in one of many ways. And so my point is here that whether Granit Xhaka was protecting Kieran Tierney or whether he was protecting Alioski, either way, his actions prevented a situation escalating, and a situation that could have seen another one of our players shown a red card after the final whistle, because that has happened this season. Reece James, Chelsea, shown a red card after the final whistle. Frank Lampard then had to contend with playing football without him. So this is not me sitting here and launching a massive defence for Granit Xhaka. It's more a case of we don't actually know what the deal was. We don't actually know who he was intending to protect. So we can't make a massive song and dance about it. But ultimately, his actions did prevent a situation escalating, a situation that could have seen us lose Kieran Tierney as well. So it's no big deal. Let's move on from it. Let's not use it as an excuse to wheel out the Granit Xhaka agenda. And it's not Granit Xhaka. There are a number of players within this Arsenal squad where there are agendas sort of floating around about them left, right and centre. People wheel them out at every opportunity. And I just feel like, why are we spending time? Why are we more concerned about that than we are about the actual performance of the team and the fact that the team is malfunctioning at the moment in so many ways? Yesterday we didn't create enough opportunities. We still lacked that creative spark, yet we gave up a ton of chances as well. That's the big issue here. That's what Arsenal fans should be focusing on, that, and not a nothing incident that occurred after the game because Granit Xhaka put his arm around Alioski. Simple as that. Let's have a look at some of you guys' comments as well in the live chat. Big hello to every single one of you joining us at the moment. Justin says he was protecting Alioski. Besnik says whoever he was protecting, good on him. As I said, there's an argument that Granit Xhaka's actions prevented a situation escalating. And as I said, it's not that big of a deal, is it? FX Entertainment says, hit the like button, lads. Make sure you do smash the like button if you haven't already. It's very, very much appreciated. Top Techer says, we're still looking toothless in attack at the moment. Only really created one proper chance with Saka. No internationals now till March, so Arteta can work on attacking. But creativity is the real issue. Spot on. That is the issue. Not this incident. I keep saying it. Trace Linton says, Arteta should never have called out Pepe like that for his first red card, because when Lewis does it and gives away the game, he doesn't. Poor man management skills. I actually disagree, Trace, with you here. And respectfully, of course, but what else is Mikel Arteta to say when Nicolas Pepe acts in such a stupid manner? And you can talk about David Luiz getting sent off as a last man, but there's a rationale behind that. When you get sent off because, and I said it last night, when you get sent off because you're the last man, because you've made a tackle to try and prevent a goal scoring opportunity that you've got wrong, then as much as I don't like it, I can probably live with it and I can probably understand it. This was a complete act of madness, a complete lack of discipline that has seen Arsenal go into a position whereby, our chances of winning the game significantly dropped. And now, not only that, we're going to be missing Nicolas Pepe for the next 3 games at a time where Willian's injured, Saka's injured. We don't 100% understand the extent of those injuries at this moment in time, but it's just an utter moment of nonsense from Nicolas Pepe, and I don't see how anybody, anywhere, can defend that or feel like Mikel Arteta is in the wrong for calling it unacceptable. It's exactly that for me. Unacceptable. Let's see what else we've got here. Tofa says, question, I noticed that the club said they're going after the social media attackers. Beside banning them from the grounds they already can't attend, what more legally can they do here? I think it's a subject we've touched on before, and this comes off the back of Arsenal and Leeds United releasing a joint statement about the social media abuse directed at both Alioski and Nicolas Pepe. I think for me, and I've said this time and time again, I think that social media platforms have to be more accountable with stuff like that. I feel like social media platforms have the technical ability to be able to censor certain subjects. For example, sticking an algorithm that prevents certain words, certain phrases in tweets coming up on people's feeds, being published. I think that people should have to enter some form of identification when setting up a social media account, because that way there's accountability for what they're saying, and you can go back and find the culprit when horrible incidents like this, when racism, where abuse rears its ugly head. We can go back and find the person responsible and punish them. At the moment, there is no accountability because people create accounts with fake email addresses, with fake profile pictures and fake names, and post whatever the shit they want, and then they go and delete that account for it never to be seen again. So I do feel like there could be more policing around that, and some people will say it's OTT, having to put your details into a social media platform to sign up, but ultimately, if your intentions are good, why should it be a problem? That's how I look at it. I'm on social media, I use my real name. I'm accountable for everything that I post on there, as I should be. Let's see what else we've got here. Dave Maudsley says, it looked to me the actions of a man under pressure. Xhaka laughing Tierney off is not on, though. As I said, I get why some people have taken issue with Granit Xhaka's actions, but do his actions warrant the kind of uproar and the response that we're getting now? I don't think they do. As I said, whether it was because he was protecting Alioski or protecting Kieran Tierney is kind of irrelevant for me, because at the end of the day, we can't prove Granit Xhaka's intentions either way. You can't prove intent. You never can. And that's why we have so many issues in football around certain rules, because intent is something that is based on an opinion and nothing more. You can't prove somebody's intent, ever. Rarely you can, anyway. You know, ultimately, what Granit Xhaka has done, whether you like it or not, has de-escalated a situation on the pitch that could have seen Kieran Tierney get himself into the book. So, as I said, it's not ideal. It's not the Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Patrick Vieira approach we've seen in years gone by. But is it a big deal? Is it an issue that we should still be discussing the next day? For me, it's probably not. But such has been the reaction, I felt that it was worth discussing, and I felt it was worth talking about. Let's say a big hello to those of you joining us in the live chat at the moment. Big hello to former Arsenal man Kevin Campbell. He says, "Hi Harry, I hope you're well and all the Gooners are too. Times are tough and questions will be asked, yet we will improve." Yeah, I think that this, I've said it all along, there are going to be bumps in the road when we talk about this process. There are going to be knockbacks. There are going to be setbacks. And actually, in isolation, when you think about how well Leeds United played, the fact that we went down to 10 men and we still managed to come away with a draw, somewhat fortuitously, it isn't the worst result in the world. You know, so yes, there are still areas in which Arsenal desperately need to improve. But at this moment in time, I'm still not at the point where I'm going to be sitting here beating the drum for the manager to get sacked, or sit here saying that Arsenal are in a major crisis. There are clear issues that we all know need addressing. We've all got our ideas about what should be done, what shouldn't be done. But I think you're right, Kevin. Things will improve eventually. It's just getting through that difficult period in the meantime. Topher says, smash the likes. Yes, please do. If you haven't already, on whichever platform it is that you are joining us, make sure you smash that like button. What else have we got here in terms of your comments? Upi says about Granit Xhaka. Let me go back to your previous comment. He says, Xhaka is trash. Get him off the team. First he tells the fans to F off. Now this. Fans' mentality is just as weak as the team's. First of all, and I don't want to go back over this whole Granit Xhaka incident that happened against Crystal Palace all those months ago now. But at the end of the day, you know, Granit Xhaka took a shitload of abuse from the Arsenal faithful. At some games that I attended, away games even, he was substitute. And there was ironic cheers and there was boos and etc. There was massive sort of, you know, levels of abuse aimed at Granit Xhaka, not just in the ground but on social media. And the guy snapped. So what? If he didn't snap, you'd say he don't care. You'd say he doesn't give effort. You'd say he's not bothered. You'd say he's just there and happy to pick up his paycheck and be a mercenary. And then when he does show some passion, when he does tell the fans off to F off, which on that particular day, in those circumstances, I still stick by the fact that he had the right to do that, then we're going to then kick off about him. At the end of the day, if you see yourself as a bit of a hard nut, if you see yourself as a man when you stand there and you abuse people and you tell them to F off and you make comments about their wife on social media and about their kids and their, you know, you constantly hurl abuse at people, then don't be such a flip-flop and such a snowflake when somebody tells you to F off back. You want to give it, you got to be able to take it. And when it comes to Granit Xhaka, I see plenty of Arsenal fans who are happy and willing to give it at any opportunity. But when it comes back in their direction, they're taken aback by it. They can't deal with it. They become snowflakes. Let's put a bit of sort of logic into this. Let's look at this with a bit of perspective. And if you're going to abuse a player, don't be surprised when you get it back. I was one of the people in the stadium that day that watched Granit Xhaka do that and thought to myself, whoa. Have we got to this point where we've given a player so much shit that he's turned around and done this? You know, how did we get to that point? But equally, having got to that point, you can't then be a snowflake and complain about him giving it back. And to his credit, since that incident, he got his head back down, he got on with it, and he has been a much better player. Now, regardless of what you thought of his performance yesterday, we're not discussing his performance here. The rhetoric on social media is nothing to do with Granit Xhaka's display against Leeds United. If you've got an issue with the way he played, or you don't think he's good enough, that's absolutely fair. But we're talking about a nonsensical incident. Not even nonsensical, that's probably the wrong word. An irrelevant incident that happened, and we're creating, as Crypto Money Team says on Twitter, a nonsensical issue. He says, I'm not a Xhaka fan, but I don't see what he did wrong. It's not that big a deal. It's simple. It is simple. You know, yes, some of you didn't like it. You didn't like it. We move on. We get over it. It doesn't need the coverage that it's getting. Because ultimately, whatever his intentions were, which as I keep on saying, none of you can prove, whatever his intentions were, it de-escalated the situation that could have resulted in us losing Kieran Tierney, who's become a key, vital component to this side. And we'd all be up in arms if it resulted in him picking up a red card. The other way of looking at it is, had Matteo Guendouzi done that, what Kieran Tierney did, go over looking for some kind of confrontation, whether it was with Xhaka, whether it was with Alioski, we'd all be sitting there going, what is he doing? So immature. That's exactly the reason why he hasn't succeeded at Arsenal. That's exactly the reason why he's been sent out on loan. So let's apply some consistency. Yes, Tierney was upset, frustrated, and you like to see that to a degree. But, you know, it's not that big a deal. It isn't really that big a deal. Darren Nichols says, hi Harry, great show. I see a photo of Eddie with his arms around the Leeds players before the game. Utterly crap. You go in focus to win the game. Our problem is our players are too soft. Eddie Nketiah spent a substantial amount of time at Leeds United. He gave Luke Ayling a hug as Luke Ayling was substituted. He came off the side of the pitch and he gave Eddie Nketiah a hug, an embrace. Because ultimately you can still be competitors and still want to win, but not be this uncivilized Neanderthal of an idiot because you gave somebody a hug. Somebody that you work with, a colleague. The prime example of this, and I always say this, take top level boxing for an example. We've all watched the big fights. And what do you see in the build-up? You see weeks, months in some cases, of trash talk, of confrontations, of boxers getting in each other's faces. But what is the first thing that they do when the bell rings to end the fight? They go and hug each other and they give each other a warm embrace. Not because they're best mates, not because they love each other, but because it's simple, it's respect. That's all it is, it's respect. I played many football matches, lost many football matches, and still went and shook hands with the opponents at the end of the game because it's what sportsmen do, and it's having a respect for someone, you know, regardless of kind of what's gone on. At the end of the day, what Alioski did was pathetic, but we'd all have wanted our player to do it. We'd all have wanted our player to dive on the floor and hold his face in that instance so that the incident gets picked up, gets highlighted, and subsequently the player is punished. But you're missing where this all stems from. And this all stems from the fact that Nicolas Pepe showed a lack of discipline, a lack of footballing intelligence to put himself in that situation and Arsenal in that situation in the first place. Mikel Arteta was absolutely right to call him out after the game, to call it unacceptable. He would have been well within his rights to say more, Mikel Arteta, but he didn't. He kept it short, he kept it sweet. He didn't dig out the player as much as some of you are suggesting. He simply said it's not acceptable and we move on, we move forward. The last thing we need now is issues in the dressing room because fans are making issues. You know, it's nonsense. It doesn't need to be a big deal. And it doesn't need to be another stick with which to beat Granit Xhaka with. That's how I see it. Right, brings us to the end of this edition of the podcast. Hope you've enjoyed it. Whether you disagree or not, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Love to hear debate. I love to hear sort of sensible, thought out comments. I'm all for that. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. Don't forget, if you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn those notifications on, because this evening at 9 p.m. UK time, Adrian Clark returns to the podcast to discuss the game at Leeds, and we'll be discussing a few other issues as well. So lots and lots to get our teeth into later on this evening, so make sure you come and join us for that. Until then, take care and enjoy the rest of your afternoons. All the best. Cheers.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.